Episode titled The Hole in the Ceiling. The morning began peacefully. Peppa and George were playing in their room where blocks, books and George's dinosaur were lying on the floor. Mummy Pig was in the kitchen, Daddy Pig was fixing something in the hallway, and the sun was shining outside. Everything was normal until Peppa noticed a small dark dot on the ceiling. At first, she thought it was just a mark or a shadow. But the dot slowly became bigger. It turned into a round little hole, and the ceiling around it seemed soft and grey. George looked up and held his dinosaur more tightly. From the hole came a quiet rustling sound, like tiny legs moving. Peppa called Mummy, but when Mummy entered the room, the hole became almost invisible. Mummy said it was probably only a small crack and promised to look at it later, but as soon as she left, the hole grew wider again. Thin little legs appeared from inside it, and then a small spider slowly came down on a thread. Peppa froze. The spider was unusual. It had a small round face that looked very much like Mummy Pig's face. It did not look angry, but it was too calm and still. The spider swung quietly in the air and looked straight at Peppa. Then a second spider came out of the hole. This one had a face that looked like Daddy Pig's. Peppa took George's hand and stepped back toward the door. The spiders did not attack and did not make noise. They simply came down one by one and sat on the walls, on the shelf, and on the edge of the bed. Each one had a familiar face, some like Mummy, some like Daddy. That made everything feel even more worrying, because they looked almost like family, but completely wrong. The room began to change. The wallpaper seemed longer, the corners became darker, and the ceiling looked as if it was rising higher. The hole became wider, and behind it, Peppa could not see the attic. She saw another ceiling, just like theirs, but upside down. There was another room there, the same as Peppa and George's room, only empty and silent. Peppa understood that the spiders were not just coming from the ceiling. It was as if they were searching for something in the room. One spider with Daddy Pig's face crawled toward Peppa's drawing. Another one, with Mummy Pig's face, sat beside George's dinosaur. George made a small, frightened sound, and at that moment, all the spiders turned their heads toward him at the same time. Peppa tried not to panic. She noticed that the spiders stopped moving when the room became bright, so she quickly ran to the window and opened the curtains. Sunlight fell across the floor, and the spiders slowly moved back toward the walls. The hole in the ceiling began to shrink, as if the light was closing it. Peppa turned on the nightlight, then the desk lamp, and then called Daddy. When the parents came back into the room, the spiders were gone, and only a small round mark was left on the ceiling. Daddy Pig looked up carefully and said it was strange because the mark had not been there in the morning. That evening, the room was checked, and everything became normal again. Peppa and George went to bed. Mummy kissed them goodnight, Daddy turned off the main light, and the night light stayed on. Peppa looked at the ceiling for a long time. The hole was gone. But just before she fell asleep, she noticed a thin silver thread hanging from the corner. On it, a tiny spider was slowly swinging, and it had Peppa's face. Episode titled New Mystery Toy. It was a normal morning. Mummy Pig was making breakfast, Daddy Pig was reading the newspaper, George was playing with his dinosaur, and Peppa was sitting on the floor arranging blocks. Suddenly, her eyes fell on a new plush pig lying on the bed. It was pink, with small shiny eyes and a neat little bow. Where did this toy come from? Peppa wondered. She picked up the pig and showed it to Mummy Pig. But Mummy only smiled. This pig has always been with you, Peppa. Daddy Pig nodded in agreement. Peppa frowned. She clearly remembered that yesterday there had been no such toy. At first, the toy lay on the bed and did nothing. But that night, Peppa woke to a faint rustling. She looked at the pig. Its position had changed. Now it was closer to the edge of the bed. Peppa blinked and looked again. The toy had indeed moved. The next day, Peppa tried to ask her parents, but they again insisted that the pig had always been hers. She placed it on the shelf, but at night, it happened again. The pig slowly moved across the room, rolling over the rug and inching closer to the bed. Peppa noticed its eyes seemed to follow her. George slept nearby, oblivious. Peppa tried to fall asleep, but she couldn't stop watching the pig. Occasionally, she heard soft squeaks, as if the toy were moving its tiny fingers. The lamp flickered slightly, and shadows on the walls shifted a little. Peppa felt a subtle tension. The nights continued like this. Each night, the pig ended up closer to her bed. Peppa tried to pick it up, but it suddenly slid across the rug as if it had tiny legs. She felt that it was watching every movement she made, even when she tried to close her eyes. One night, Peppa heard a soft whisper. "Peppa?" She opened her eyes. The pig was standing on the windowsill, its bow gently swaying. Peppa froze. Her heart raced, her fingers trembled. She couldn't move, and the toy tilted slightly toward her, as if it wanted to say something. At dawn, the pig was back on the bed. Peppa told Mummy Pig and Daddy Pig. They again insisted it had always been there. Peppa could not explain what she had seen at night, but when she approached the bed, the bow on the pig slightly twitched. Peppa felt once again that the toy was watching her.